Success occurs when opportunity needs preparations. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we hope that you all don't have any power cuts. I'm Dara Kaushali, and I will be your moderator for this evening. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all here. As you all know by now, we are here to witness how to build your CV like a pro. On first day of this workshop by the IEEE Computer Society, the student branch chapter of IIT. Now I would like to invite a very special person from our technical chapter. He is our project co-chairman and active volunteer of many clubs and societies of IIT. Currently, he is the director of events, IEEE CS chapter of IIT. He is none other than Mahil Tilakaratne. Over to you, Mahil.
Thank you, Dara. So I start the session like this. Have you ever thought of becoming a professional in your career path? Or have you ever dreamed of joining a leading IT company in Sri Lanka or abroad? If so, you have come to the appropriate event, IndustPro. Good evening. I'm Mahil Tilakaratne, IndustPro co-chair and director of event at IEEE Computer.
To produce talented young professionals with prior knowledge about the industry and make their future more successful via the event. So I would like to introduce our guest speaker. She's an HR assistant manager at Fortune and also certified professional and accreditation from the Society for Human Resource Management, the foremost expert, convener, and thought leader on issues impacting today's evolving workplaces. She has experience in global resource planning, business partnering, and people operations initiatives across the IT and technology sector. She is Ms. Sasini Vitana. Over to you, Ms. Sasini.
Thanks, Adara. Thanks for the introduction. So let me share my screen quickly before starting the session. Hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, Miss.
Okay, super. So first of all, good evening to everyone who's joining us today. And also thank you to Udara and Rangul and the IEEE team for inviting me to join in for this session and share our knowledge with you all. And it's great to have you all join us. So first things first, I'll give a very quick intro to myself. So I started as an intern at Fortune closer to 5 years ago, and currently I work as an assistant manager. My education background is coming from SIMA, but my focus when it comes to my career is in talent acquisition. And I currently work as the lead recruiter for Fortune across Asia and Australia, New Zealand regions. And as Udara said, I'm also a certified professional of the Society of Human Resource Management, which is SHRM. And other than that, have experience in few other pillars of HR as well, as Udara mentioned. So before moving into the CV creation session, let me give a small intro to who we are as Fortune and then kick off. So we are an enterprise software company focusing mainly on ERP implementation and support. And the ERP platform that we focus is on a tier 1 ERP platform, which is called Info M3, which is specifically designed to support the manufacturing process. And it stands right after SAP and Oracle, who focuses on services and financial industries respectively. And in addition to Info M3, we are also the first accredited gold partner for Microsoft Power BI in Sri Lanka. And Fortitude is the IT arm of the Brandix Group, which is $1 billion business operating in numerous countries across Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. And from Fortitude side of it, we do have our operations and clients as well, spanning across America, UK, Australia, and Asia regions. So we are actually one of the largest Info M3 organizations in the world and the largest M3 resource base. And our projects mostly focus on numerous industries, as which was shown on the video as well, covering fashion, food and beverages, distribution, and retail industries. So with such operations, of course, we have our specialized teams focusing on ERP consulting, software development, quality assurance, then project management, and business intelligence, supporting this entire process throughout different verticals. So the next slide is a very high-level intro to few of our clients and their testimonials, and you can see some familiar logos as well, such as Biga. So Biga is a multi-million-dollar F&B giant based out in Australia, and you might have actually seen some of their cheese products in few of our supermarket shelves in Sri Lanka as well. So I'm not going to spend much time on this particular slide, and let's move on to the next slide. So when it comes to today's agenda for my presentation, we will be starting off with the importance of a CV, and then we'll move on to the elements that needs to be there, then do's and don'ts, and finally wrap up the session with a quick Q&A session. So we have a limited time frame to cover all these areas. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to add in those questions on the go on the chat box, or else even to directly ask during the Q&A session. So the one thing to remember is that these areas that I'm going to cover is not an ideal world. It's not the global standard. This is from the perspective of a recruiter in an IT company. So moving on. So why is a CV so important, and why do we ask candidates to give so much of attention and effort in creating it? So because this is basically your pitch, but through a piece of paper or a document. So you are basically trying to convince someone to hire you for a role through a piece of paper. And we know how hard it can even to give a pitch face-to-face and convince someone. The basic idea in creating a CV should be to say, hey, look here, I have these 4 skills and I played these job roles with achievements such as this. And this is my key focus area. So I think I'm the best fit for this opportunity that you have advertised for. And that's why your CV needs to be on point. And with this, one of the very first questions which might come into someone's mind would be, what should I create? Is it a CV or is it a resume? And this is a place where a lot of people tends to get confused and think about which one to choose, or even wonder whether there's any difference or whether it's the same thing. The answer to that question is yes, that there is a difference. There is a difference between the CV and the resume. So CV is a lengthier and more descriptive version, which usually could go on for 2 to 3 pages and cover a detailed overview of a person's experience, qualifications, skills, and many other areas which are mentioned on this slide as well. But when it comes to resume, it gives a very quick idea of your key competencies through a 1-pager that shouldn't have lengthy descriptions. It should only cover the main components like your education, experience, then core skills, and any other main accomplishments. Which is better? There's no right or wrong answer there. It's absolutely your choice. No one's going to reject you just because you chose the CV format or the resume format. And then the next immediate question would usually be, okay, now I'm going to create a CV or a resume, but how should it look like? When it comes to an outlook of a CV, as you can see, there are 2 ways the traditional way of structuring where it's just a black and white paper with details included. And then there's the modern way of structuring it, which gives you the chance to use graphics to represent details in a way which it would make it easier for the person who's reading it to absorb the details faster. But back again, the choice is yours to decide which format to follow, as there is no wrong outlook between these two traditional and modern way of creating it. So moving on to the next slide, right? So before writing your CV, there are a few points that I would like you to keep in your mind throughout that entire process of creation. Number one is to give a clean and clear message. Be to the point and don't include any irrelevant details just to fill up the space or to create a lengthy document. When creating a CV, this is where the phrase that sometimes less is more becomes applicable. Because most of the time, a recruiter or a hiring manager won't spend 5 to 10 minutes focusing or reading just one CV. Then number two is the font. Be mindful of the font size and the theme that you use. I would personally recommend not to use any font size below the size of 10, and also to avoid any fancy fonts which might make it harder to read. Also, the color of the font, it's better to stick to the neutral line of colors rather than going for the striking reds or orange colors on the CV. And next one is the structure. Come up with a proper order to display and include your details throughout the documents and have a clean flow to it. Don't enter details here and there and create a clutter and make you look very disorganized. Number four is use bullet points whenever it is possible and don't overcrowd. It's easier to absorb details that are given in point form rather than just reading through paragraphs and try to figure out where exactly the details that the hiring manager or the recruiter needs to focus on. And finally, if you are applying for an opportunity, the first thing to do would be to take a few minutes and thoroughly go through that particular job advert. A lot of us tend to blindly apply to any job opening just because the job title sounds a bit fancy or else the field is interesting without actually reading the advert. Don't do that. Take your time to read it. And then number one is to see whether those given job roles actually interests you. If yes, then it comes to the second step where you would have to take another 15 to 30 minutes to customize your CV using those keywords or skills which are mentioned on that advert but actually relates to you into your CV. This will help you to highlight and address directly to the company's requirement, and it will increase your chance of getting shortlisted drastically. So keeping these points in mind, now it's time to move on to the elements of the CV. What you have to remember here is that this is your first impression and this is your first interaction with the company. So and that interaction and that impression matters. So take your time to come up with a good flow to your CV and include proper and appropriate details throughout. So when it comes to the elements, in my opinion, there are 5 main components. So the first is the header section. This is where you include your name, the contact details, or might be a photo as well if you really want to. And next is the summary. Use this section to give a very quick introduction to yourself. And thirdly, your work or internship experience. This is a very straightforward section and is your employment timeline. Then next is your core skills. Here you should highlight your key specializations or expertise that you would have. And finally, the education and professional qualifications. Back again, just like the third point, quite straightforward and should be your qualifications timeline. Now let's look at each of these elements in detail. So the first element is the header. So you should use this section to include your preferred name, a link to your LinkedIn account, the portfolio, or the blog. But make sure all these links that you are including on the profile actually relates to your career and adds value to your professional life. Don't just go and add in any random blog post that you started. Make sure that those actually adds value to the job that you're targeting. And then the basic details. So by basic details, what I mean here is only your contact number, the email address, the base location. Don't go ahead and include your gender or the date of birth or whether you're married or not, unless it's specifically requested in the job advert, because those aspects usually doesn't matter when it comes to hiring an individual. And also when choosing an email ID, use a professional one. For an example, I'll just go ahead with what's on the screen. If your name is John Smith, have an email ID which go ahead with something similar to johnsmith@gmail.com. Don't use those awkward email IDs that you would have created many years ago. Then finally, the other element which you can include here is a photo. And it's very much optional, it's not mandatory. But if you're including a photo in your CV, use a professional one with a neutral background and limited distractions. Don't put selfies or any funky photos that you would have taken up during parties. And this brings us to the next section, which is the summary. So this is one of the very first sections that anyone who would look through your CV would read, just to get a very quick overall idea of who you are. The summary should be maximum a 2 or 3 liner paragraph that highlights your top achievements, expertise, and your core skills. Here, stay to the point and try creating a mini pitch of yourself with this, and avoid including any unnecessary details like typing speeds or whatsoever. Another point is, this is my personal opinion, avoid including objective statements. I feel that it's quite outdated, and adding a summary of yourself at the beginning of a CV would add much more value than that in creating. And thirdly, now we are in the work experience section. Although this section is a very important part or an element in your CV, if this is your first job or the internship, don't include this section. Just keep it. Don't go ahead and include any club memberships or any other activities that you've done under this section. Include it separately, right? So if this is your first job, just keep it. No need to update it. But if you have any previous work experience, you should try creating a timeline here. Start from the details of your most recent or the current job right at the top, and then create a backwards timeline. And with that, when you are creating that timeline for each job role, make sure to mention, clearly state your job title, the company, and the time period that you have stayed in that particular company or the job role. Then go into describing the role and the responsibilities. But in this area, always, as I said, use bullet points at all times and try to stay to the point. Also speak of your contributions to the role or your achievement whilst you are playing that role, rather than just trying to list down what you did as your daily responsibilities, which would more or less would look like your job description for that your current position. So try to speak more of your contributions and what you've achieved during that period instead. And more attention should be given to any responsibilities which would actually relate to this new opportunity you are targeting. And don't include, again, any irrelevant details or lengthy paragraphs to fill up the space. Finally, don't add in any previous job roles which aren't necessarily relevant to the new job that you are targeting. As an example, just out of my head, let's say that you've done an internship in content writing, and now we are trying to move into project management. It doesn't have a very direct line of contribution to this new role, right? So skip adding that internship experience and go with a fresh one. It's only going to crowd your CV without adding much value, and it might actually end up being the reason why you are not getting shortlisted for an interview for that project management role. And fourthly, it's the skills section. So use the skills section to give a snapshot view of your core skills and competencies. Here, cover both the technical and soft skills, and only include the ones that are actually relevant to the job role that you're targeting. And very importantly, the skills which you are actually familiar and are up to date with. Basically, if you mention a skill on your CV, you should be ready to answer questions on that. It's easy as that. So the interviewers would be coming up or choosing the questions that they have based on the skills that you have mentioned. So if you mention it, be ready to answer questions on that. So because of that, avoid any skills or technologies that you aren't actually up to date on. And finally, don't crowd your CV by mentioning obvious skills. So when I say obvious skills, it would be something like the basic Microsoft package or the fact that you're a quick learner. Those are things to mostly learn on the job and for the hiring managers to figure it out on the go. And then final section is on qualifications. So just like in the work experience section, start from the most recent details and create a backwards timeline. And one of the most important points here is to only use factual data and not to exaggerate. And also don't use any outdated or irrelevant qualifications. Don't use anything which isn't necessarily adding any value to your professional career. But please go ahead and include all technical qualifications or the certifications that you might have done that are related to the targeted job. Another point is also to avoid listing down results of your qualifications on the CV. Just mentioning the qualification, the respective institute, and your ID or membership number would be more than enough. So as an example, if it's your A-level results, don't go listing down results for each subject from biology to general English, and it will only sort of end up increasing the length of your CV, which we are trying to limit here. So once you're done updating all these 5 elements, we are pretty much done. But there are a few things that I want you to recheck and reconfirm before you finalize it. And that is, number 1 is run a spelling and grammar check. Don't damage your first impression just because of few typos. It's very easy to run a spelling and grammar check on a Word document, and you can even use applications such as Grammarly to assist you. And number 2 is check alignments and formatting of the document. Sometimes it speaks volumes on how organized or detail-oriented a person actually is just by going through their CV. So don't let these details on your CV be all over the place without any organized flow and be like clutter. Make it aligned and organize it. Then number 3 is keep it short and simple. As I've been repeating throughout the session, make it a very clear yet concise document. Personally, for an undergraduate or a fresh graduate, the CV shouldn't be longer than 1 page. It should be a just 1 page. But if you're an experienced professional, when you move up the career ladder, try to keep your profile at a maximum of 2 to 3 pages, but no longer than that. So even my CV with 5 years experience, it's still a 1-page document, right? So try to limit the number of pages that you have. And number 4, only use factual data. Very, very important. Don't try to add in any non-existent details or exaggerate. You will get into trouble with the company and lose credibility. So always use only factual data. And number 5, customize for every application you send. I think I mentioned this in one of the previous slides as well in using keywords, right? This is quite an important point where a lot of people tend to overlook. Don't send out the same CV that you have created to all the job openings that you are applying for. Just take a few minutes to read the advert and then align few points under each section to match that job advert. But of course, the points or the keywords or the skills which are actually relevant to you and is, factual. Trust me, this will increase your chance of getting shortlisted drastically because you're addressing the company's requirement directly to them, right? And then finally, last but not least, keep updating frequently. Did you just start a new job, or did you just get a new responsibility under your belt to handle, or did you just get promoted? Add that to your CV right away and keep updating that basic document. Don't wait until last minute to until something comes up to start suddenly working on a CV and create it in a rush, which will make you create it in a very disorganized manner without proper time and effort. So just wrapping up, the number 1 point to remember throughout this entire process is that the first impression matters. So you should give effort in it and create a proper order to it. So with that, I'm pretty much done with my presentation, and we can, I think, open up the forum for any questions that you might have. I think there's one question. Is it advisable to use a CV builder when making CVs? You can, but definitely, just don't let it be an auto population. Yes, it will be an auto population if you have entered any data, right? So, but always go through personally, customize accordingly, and update.
Okay, guys, have any questions? Please let us know. You can unmute yourself and ask from Miss Sasini also.
Yes, of course, feel free to.
Okay, I'm also enrolled in this one, so I have also questions because I'm also a undergraduate who are expecting interns. So basically, we can't just mention the work experience. So we have covered some academic projects and also individual projects throughout our IIT this year. So can we add that as well?
Yes, very good point, Randul, right? So if you are a fresher who hasn't done any work experience, or else if you have just completed an internship, definitely add those projects, right? But when you're adding those projects, one thing to remember is, of course, add the project title and give a brief intro to what this project was, right? What you all did. And if you're a technical person, if you're a technical student, let's say a software developer or a QA, if you're following a career path like that, make sure to also add this, the tech stacks that you use during that project along with that. So you have the title of the project, give a bit of description of what you did or the project was about. Then you add the skills that you use. As an example, you would have built an app or something, and you can say you use .NET, Angular, or Node.js. Likewise, add the tech stack there. Of course, you should add it.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions, guys? Please put it on chat, or else you can unmute now and ask the questions.
I think there's one question. Should we include the names of the modules we did in the CV? Yes, you can, right? But only the modules. Again, this including the modules part comes into place if you don't have previous work experience, right? If not, then add the modules, but the modules which would actually relate to the job that you're applying. If it's project management, try to focus on adding the modules which directly adds value to that project management role. If we are adding those projects, do we have to mention them as work experience or any other names like voluntary or academic experience? Don't add it as work experience. Just open up a separate section instead of the work experience section. Open a separate section and say university projects or something like that, a similar title.
Guys, any other questions?
There's one question from a person. He's asking, is that okay to use building tools for creating the CV?
Sorry, Rushan, the line was not clear.
He's asking, is it okay to use building tools for the creating a CV?
Yes, yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Another question, madam, like question is, can we apply twice for the company? Like as a, like in the thing, it's there's a company, then I'm creating a CV. So then I apply. After that, I gather the more knowledge and more experience. So can I apply again? Is it okay or not?
Yes, so reapplying for a company is perfectly fine, right? And so you can share your application multiple times. There's no issue with that.
Is it okay after the failing the interviews also?
So it's like this, right? So let's say you faced an interview right this week, right? And you went for the interview, but you didn't get through. But the same position is open next week as well. If you apply next week, it would be very little chance that you would be called for an interview again because you interviewed for the same position, which is open just a week ago, right? But if it's like 6 months down the line, you have gathered more experience, you can definitely go ahead and apply.
Okay. Is there another question? Is there any difference between online interviews and physical interviews, like advantages and disadvantages?
So there is no particular difference other than the face-to-face presence, right? Because so right now, Fortitude runs on a 100% virtual interview process. And right before the pandemic, it used to be 100% face-to-face. And overnight, we had to change it to a virtual method, right? There is a difference, the feeling of the person having in front of you, and you can gauge the candidate, or you can gauge the candidate better because your body language would speak volumes at times, right? Whether you are telling the truth or whether you're actually interested in the role or not. And same goes to the candidate, right? The candidate can gauge the interviewers much better. But I think Fortitude, along with a lot of companies, are trying to minimize that, right? But there are a set of preparations that you have to do for a virtual interview if you are joining for one, right? Few I would advise being definitely have a backup for your internet connectivity, right? With the frequent power cuts going on. Have a hotspot ready on your mobile when you are joining an interview. And choose the location that you are joining for the virtual interview wisely, right? Make sure it's a place with limited disruptions to the interview, with limited background noise or people coming in and disrupting you. And other than that, join few minutes early, 5 to 10 minutes, just check the connection, the audio and the video and everything. And one other important thing is, don't ever try to search for answers online when you are in the middle of the interview, right? So don't ever try that. You might think that, the online interviewers, it's online, they don't notice, but they do, and they notice and they raise it up, right? So don't ever do that. So those are like very few tips for the virtual interviews.
Another problem is like we have a career day in 29, so we have to print our CVs and go for that career day. Is it okay to ask like we have to print more than 10 CVs? There's 80 companies as I heard. So is it okay to ask for from the companies? Is it okay, like I'm sending a online or digital CV? Is it okay? Can I like get the physical CV? Is it okay or not?
It would depend on what the process which would run during the career day, right? So if the university has not shared your online profile with the company in advance, giving a specific slot, it would be a bit tough if you are waiting just to share the online CV right at that point, right? If not, it would perfectly fine to just go with an online profile, right? Because I think most of the companies, IT companies specifically, runs on online. We rarely use physical evaluation documents, right? But if the process requires you to carry a printed document, take it for the day.
Thank you, Miss.
And I think there's one question from Randul. Does the font really matters? Yes, the font matters, because the idea of sending that CV is for the reader, the hiring manager or the recruiter to absorb the details and shortlist you fast as possible, right? So don't avoid using very small font sizes, which could be hard to read, right? There are professionals with different backgrounds coming in, right? So make sure that it's very readable, and don't go for very fancy fonts, as I said, right, which are hard to read. The idea is to have the easiest way to read and the easiest way to absorb the details out of the CV. And I think there's another question: do the recruiters check the referees? What are the details we should include about the referees? So my take is, you don't have to include the referees on your CV, right? If you are if you are shortlisted beyond a certain stage, the company calls you and requests for the referral details. They would usually request for a detail of if you have previous work experience, they would ideally request for a referee from a previous company, or a supervisor, or a project team lead, or a team colleague. If you don't have any previous experience, you might have to give a lecturer, right? But think twice about who you give, right? It should be a person who actually has visibility to your, either to your academic performance or to your work performance. And next is Do we have to add the module names with our grades, or is it just the names itself enough? As I said, modules, including modules into the CV should be the only option if you don't have any work experience. If not, add the modules which are relevant to the applying job role. You don't necessarily have to enter the grades. You can add an overall grade up until that point if you get a high level, let's say the GPA amount, or likewise if you have. If not, avoid it. The interviewers would usually ask you in the interview if they have any questions on that. Can you can you give some points about the cover letter? So I'm a person who personally thinks that cover letter is not necessarily needed, right? It's nobody really takes time to read it. We directly go to the CV and read through the CV and shortlist to you. If you really want to add a cover letter and the company is very insisting on a cover letter, then you might have to browse through a few templates and get through online and create one for yourself. But my idea is it's very optional. To enter to a dream company like Versa WSO2 Serja, we needed the first class honors. As far as I know, it's a no. You don't need first class honors. They would do interviews, and if you match you have the right attitude and but good scores, they would get you in. I don't think so. I'm in a position to comment on behalf of them. At least from Fortitude perspective, we don't necessarily just drop a CV because a score is low or a GPA is low. It's your attitude, it's your experience, it's the personality that you carry. How to answer the question, what do you see, what do you see yourself in 5 years, if asked? So give them like give them a practical answer, right? So I can't give you the answer exactly to, without knowing your background, right? So let's say you start as a trainee or an intern, you're 5 years down the line, you definitely can reach a level of a manager or a senior manager or an equivalent designation, which is in line, right? So phrase your answer around that and go along the passion that you have and be authentic with the answer. The next question is, I have done a summer internship. So should I have one topic called experiences and have subtopics called work experience and project, or should I include them separately? Include them separately, right? So you can actually create a section called work experience and add the summer internship exposure under that, and the project experience you can add separately and give the briefings to the projects. And as an example, in my CV, one page was not enough, and it only took another 5 lines of the next page. So is it okay to print those 5 lines in a new page, or should I print it in the back of the first page? Thank you for your time. Okay. Don't print in the back of the page for sure, right? I would actually suggest get those 5 lines also into the first page, right? So see whether there are any unnecessary details that you can actually, which are not necessarily needed. See whether you can actually make it a 1 page and take that 1 page. If it's impossible, yes, go with the 2 pages. Okay, I have created my CV with the cover letter. Can I have your number or the email address so I can share you my CV and clarify the mistakes? You can add me up on LinkedIn and message me on LinkedIn. I will respond to you.
Also, guys, we have a CV submission as well, which we will let you know soon in this session. So there will be one-to-one CV review session will be given to you. So take that opportunity as well. Thank you.
Okay, next question is, do we have to add hobbies and club memberships? Is it a must? It's not a must, right? Unless you have been very active in it, right? If you've been a very active rock track club member, or even at IEEE, right? If you've been very active, if you've been a very active member, add those details. Other than that, just don't go listing down all the clubs that you've been at school like the, I don't know, the science society or like that, where you actually didn't add much value. But if you've done sports, if you've been very active in clubs, definitely go for it. Can we add a volunteer experience? Yes, you can. You can add that as well. Is there any chance to get a big salary as an intern? I can't really comment on this, Ravindu. It would depend upon the company and the role that you're applying for and which particular technical area that you're going into. I won't be able to give you a number on the salary, but usually how the process flow is that you start at a certain level, and then once you're getting promoted, once you're getting converted to permanent roles, your salary adjusts accordingly. If there are like 3 pages in the CV, is it fine if you print out the 3 pages, like 2 pages are printed both sides, or do we need to print this here? I would advise on printing 3 pages separate. Apart from CV, do we need any other documents to prove the work experience? Not really. You can update it on the CV, but if you have any previous work experience, if you are selected for the role as a part of the, might be through the background verifications or just for personal document collation, the company usually asks for a service letter or likewise. So no need to carry anything other than your CV, carry any proof documents for an interview other than your CV. Have it updated on your CV. Again, the same question on just printing out on 2 separate pages. I would advise on 2 separate pages, but if it's tough, you go for a double page as well. But my first preference would be on 2 separate pages. How does open source contributions stand out in the CV? It definitely stands out, right? So go ahead and add it up and explain what you've done. Any more questions?
Ma'am, can we add links of professional certificates we have earned, like Google Data Science professional certificates in CVs?
Yes, for sure. So if you have done those certification, it's a must to add. It will definitely highlight that you're a person who's done additional research and effort in getting those certifications even before coming into a job, right? So definitely add those.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
And guys, we can have, I think, 2 more questions maybe, so we can end the Q&A session.
Do we only need to include the year range of previous experience, or do we need to include month and day as well? No need, right? You can either go with the month and year, let's say July 2017 to February 2020, an approach like that, or else you just mention 2017 to 2020. That's it. You don't need to mention the date.
So, ma'am, is there any questions left by your side?
I did few courses in Coursera and Google's verified courses, but I didn't apply for the certificate. Can I add those details in the CV? Yes, you can, right? Go ahead and add it, but make sure that you have actually completed the course. You can just mention that you have completed the course.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Sasini, for that enlightening and informative session. I hope everyone left with a better understanding of how to create a more accurate CV. So please accept this token of appreciation.
Thank you. Thanks, Udara and Ramdul and rest of the IEEE team.
Thank you, Ms. Sasi. Okay, guys, and now we come to the most awaited session. It's panel discussion. So I would like to introduce our moderator for a panel discussion. He's the student branch coordinator of IIT for 2021-2022 in the IEEE Computer Society Sri Lankan chapter and chairman of IEEE Computer Society student branch chapter of IIT. He is Randul Malinhara. Randul, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you, Dara. So very good evening, everyone. I almost we have a productive awareness session about CV writing and how to write them. So I'm Randul Marinara, and I'll be a moderator for this special evening of our panel discussion about the emerging technologies and the IIT placement here. So first of all, we will introduce who are the panelists we are joining today. So once again, I welcome Ms. Sasini Vitana, who is currently working as an assistant manager HR at Fortitude. Once again, welcome Ms. Sasini for the virtual stage of panel discussion. So the next person we are going to he is currently a group executive director of George Stewart and Company. He's also on board of Citrus Leisure. He currently overlooks the group IT requirement as well as primarily overseeing the operation of George Stewart Solution, which specializes in consumer durables and construction related solutions. And also he holds a master degree in information technology from the Keele University, UK, and a Bachelor of Science honors degree in information system from Manchester Metropolitan University in UK. So he's also a chartered information technology professional and counts over 24 years of corporate experience. I think now you will see the person that much experience. So he's none other than Mr. Manoj Ilmathalavde. Welcome, Mr. Manoj, for the final discussion.
Thank you, Randul. Thank you.
So,
hi, Safiri.
Hi, Manoj.
So our final. So finally, we are going to invite to our panel discussion. So he's a special person and also module leader and lecturer at IIT. And also he graduated from Manchester Metropolitan University, UK. And he's currently working as a lecturer, trainer, corporate skills development personality, and a motivation speaker. He's a consultant with a demonstrated history of over 17 years of engagement in the advisory and IT consultant industry. He is none other than Mr. Havindra Gunavarthana. Welcome to the virtual stage, Mr. Havindra Gunavarthana.
Good evening, Randul, and everyone else. Sasini, nice to see you, and Manoj, nice to meet you as well.
Nice to see you too, Havindra.
Once again, I welcome everyone. So, before we starting our panel discussion, all of the students who are engaging today and also on the undergraduates, you can ask questions in this time and also engage with us, and the chat will be open for you now. So, okay. So let me point out the questions for every panelist today. So first question goes to Miss Sasini Vitana. So, ma'am, so we know that you have a prior and massive work done for Fortitude, and also we have just look it up, and you start the human resources intern to human resource associate to executive, then the senior executive HR, and now an assistant manager of HR. So you may think about the intern like before this COVID pandemic, and all these interns are fresh graduates. Facing for an intern, they came physically, and they came to see the interviews physically. They have seen the interview physically, and also they know the first impression of the interviewers and attitude of everything. And also I mentioned that, like Janadu mentioned that, what is the difference between virtual interviewers and also the physical interviewers. So my question is how we are measuring online interviews using the online interviewing methods, and also how you tackle these attitudes, and also the objectives of thinking interviewers, and also uh, from the intern when training in a virtual environment. You know that when we go for the internship, there's a virtual environment. You have to train yourself. You have to polish your skills. So how can it be changeable with this situation?
Yeah, and so as I said, we had to pretty much overnight change to a virtual situation from face to face, right? And but as from Fortitude side, what you've done is we created an entire series of programs for the interviewers. Specifically, we trained them on not just interviewers, the entire company actually went through a series of training sessions on how you manage virtual meetings, virtual interactions, virtual interviews, and then a specific set of other training sessions as well to our internal interviewers and hiring managers on interview skills, especially for specific possible virtual scenarios, right? So, and from Fortitude side of it, when managing the training, so before going virtual, when we were at office, basically when we were working from office, our training hours for usually were around 1,000 to 2,000. But with this virtual change, it has actually increased to 300 to 400% during the last financial years, right? So we've noticed a positive change from our company side of it. More than a challenge, it has become something positive, and we've taken up very positively. And as I said, there is a difference when it comes to conducting interviews or when welcoming someone new to the team. There is a difference of it being a virtual and when it comes to the first face-to-face meetup. What we are trying doing is to minimize that gap and that difference of feeling as much as possible by training the internal teams, creating like a very elaborated induction programs, from meeting supervisors to teams to sometimes even the regional heads or the global leadership team members coming in and meeting them in separate coffee chats or likewise, right? So we've tried our best to minimize that gaps, although there is a slight difference in meeting virtually.
Okay, I think I almost got that. So actually, it's a really good thing that Fortitude is also having that system to collaborate and work with the virtual interns. But Sasmi, I have one more questions about that point. So as an HR now, in HR perspective, what are the objectives as an intern you have to fulfill? So you're expecting something from interns as well, and also intern expect their career development. But as an HR perspective, how you dealing with this situation for the objective?
Yeah. So in terms of HR and even from any other teams which would take in an intern to the team, right? Or from an intern or a fresh graduate without any prior work experience, I think a company will not usually expect a lot of hands-on technical exposure from you. But you will need to be thorough in the technical areas which you have learned. And if you were an active member of your final year project, that will definitely be of good value, right? And mostly attitude is what matters the most. The passion, the learning agility, and being open to give that required effort and commitment in going through the learning curve when you start as a fresher. Right, so these things matters. And also, if you've been part of a sports teams, clubs, societies like IEEE maybe, right, make sure you take on those experiences as well, come in, right? And then you come in as a well-rounded individual, although you're starting as an intern, right? What matters the most for an intern or a fresher is that attitude, the passion to learn and to give that effort and go through that learning curve and step up the career ladder.
Thank you for that. I think I got that answer correctly. So what most as an HR perspective, what for the interns they are expecting from us. So I think the next question is goes for Mr. Manoj Pilimuthalave, and I'm really honorable moment for this to me because everyone here to speak with the expert in the industry and also one of the most senior IIT alumni and have experience in industry more than 20 plus years. So, Mr. Manoj, for the first question, I'm asking how was the business condition and how it really affected for the interns in companies?
Yeah, Ramdu. So I think the situation is obvious. Most people know, the last 2 years has been a very challenging time for all companies, right? Let it be even if it's an IT company or if it is a supply chain, process company, anything. It has been a very challenging situation because one is, I think, we faced this situation where the COVID itself, the lockdown made it very difficult for people to come into office, right? And that at that point, I think I would say the interns were the ones who were affected the most, right? Because the reason is when an intern comes into an office, they expect to be guided, coached, and they expect that support coming from their leadership. And unfortunately, in this situation, we had to tell everyone to stay at home, right? The ones who had experience, obviously, were able to immediately get onto a virtual platform and do the remote working and doing all sorts of remote management work. But the interns did get affected quite a lot. And also from a company's point of view, I think even the industries, a lot of companies kind of held back a little bit on the interns because the reason is they had no way of coaching them. Right now, I picked up Sasini telling a little while ago that Fortitude actually had some processes put in place to do this, and that's great. And that itself shows that that the company is ready to kind of take on that sort of a challenge. But in this scenario, if you take the general industry, right, they were not ready for that, right? I mean, people are not ready to even work from home, right? So this was this issue. To answer your question, this issue actually affected the intern. And also it affected the businesses not only in Sri Lanka but also outside, right? So I would say the first maybe 6 months, 1 year, even the companies which were doing work, like we say IT work. I can't speak for Fortitude here, Sasini, but I'm saying even the other, a lot of companies had a little bit of difficulty because the reason is the work wasn't coming in because they weren't working there. It's simple as that. In other countries, they were, they actually, they were also taken by surprise when it came to this kind of a situation, right? So that's one. But then having said that, things turned around. It became obviously much brighter for everybody by them adapting to remote working and work from home kind of situations. But right now in Sri Lanka, we are of course facing other challenges, right? Where the companies are finding it difficult to operate and run and things like that. Again, the software industry and if you take the companies which are doing outsourced work, right, or product development for external foreign companies, they are not affected so badly, right? But they are affected simply from a human capital point of view because people are finding it difficult to manage with their remunerations and things like that. But other than that, they are doing okay. But the others are actually affected, I would say, right? But there is a turn. Now we can see that people are actually working from home. They're ready to do things from home. I've seen that not IT, but I've seen in our group people who have hardly worked with computers are ready to take a computer home and work from home and things like that. So for the interns, I think that is it's a great lesson for the interns, right? Because this is what you need to be ready for. These things can come again and again, and we need to be ready for that, right?
So I would like to ask from Ms. Sasini once again, how was about the Fortitude? So is that affect for the interns now, or else it's not? I think
I was on mute, yes. So from intern intakes perspective, no, actually, we continued our hiring processes, right? There was a bit of a slowing down, as Manoj explained, a lot of companies were adjusting what's going on. So there was a bit of slowdown during might be the first 6 months of the pandemic, but after that, it's been a hiring spree in IT side of it, right? And currently, I know for a fact that the IT market in Sri Lanka has become very dynamic and very volatile, right? Because everyone's hiring. And from hiring perspective, there hasn't been much slowdown. For sure, it has definitely increased.
so. Anything else to Ms. Tahavendra? You can also add about this discussion.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a great bit of input that came from both Sasani and Manoj there on you know the value of actually the adjustments that you all need to make during this time. So especially in your internship, it's not so much not only about what you can get out of the experience of interning at one of these companies. It's also about what you can give back to the company, right? So the focus is also, you know, you've spent 2 years you know, learning in your first 2 years of your module of your different degree courses. Now, all the theory you've learned, it is actually an opportunity to now apply it. And now the difference in the environment where you've got to actually apply it in maybe a more online mode, working from anywhere kind of scenario, will help you to become flexible and creative in your approach of how you can add value to these companies that you're going to be a part of. So it's a great opportunity for all of you. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Once again, I like to okay. I think the question is go for Mr. Manoj. I think once again. So, sir, within these emerging technologies and the cutting-edge technologies and IT industries, we are expecting, like as an intern, we are expecting that we are an expert in a job role. So if I may ask, so as an intern, how we should prepare for those? I hope both Mr. Manoj and Mr. Sasini answer for this. So first accept Mr. Manoj.
Okay. Yeah, I think I would say the first thing is that you get your foundation right, without jumping into a technology. Get that right, because the technology is it's a buzzword, right? Every technology is a buzzword. It comes and goes. I have seen this over my career. I have seen technologies coming and going, like you know, you changing coins in your wallet, right? So they are not things sometimes which stick, you know, stay for a long time. Sometimes they're there for the hype, and then next thing you know, somebody else invents something, somebody puts out, and then you have a bunch of people, you know, pushing behind that. So the most important thing I would say, though, the advice I can give is get your foundation right. Understand when it comes to, if you're in development side, understand the basic concepts of development, understand if it's object-oriented programming, you know, understand the object-oriented programming concepts, what it is, understand databases, all that, right? Then you, from then onwards, move to the next level. You want to, you know, it all depends on what your passion is, right? And what you're passionate about. So you can move into any technology you want. I know it could be the AIs, you want to go into blockchain, you want to go into 5G or IoT or whatever, you know, any of these areas, right? These are all things that you can really, you know, go behind, right? And of course, security, right? Which that's one thing, of course, I should make a point. Security is something which doesn't get outdated. It will just keep on, you know, improving, right? Because from at least the days I started, there was security, and it's still there, right? because it's a continuous requirement, and you know, it will always be there. But whatever you're trying to get into, get the foundation right, right? Because this is something I have seen as a blocker, where I have seen people coming in with excellent skills in a specific technology, and then suddenly say the project is over, or you know, they need to be shifted to something else. They're just stuck, They just can't move forward because the reason is they have only experience in that particular technology and they have nothing else beyond that, right? So unfortunately for companies in Sri Lanka, we are not exactly Microsoft or Google, right? So therefore, we depend on other people, giving us projects, right? To this thing. So we need to be able to cater to that, right? And so I think that that is the main thing I would say you need to do. And the second thing is, of course, once you have I think a good foundation, or you have a good understanding of the basics, then do a lot of reading, right? Be up to date with technology, because it's changing every day, right? So you need to be up to date. You should subscribe to the forums. You should be up to date with some of the online magazines, and that's what people like, right? You go for an interview, and if you also are able to relate to day-to-day technologies, I mean, that's something which is very, very impressive, because people understand that you are somebody who's passionate about technology, right? And I'm not going to hog all the time, so I'm going to give that you to Shazin for her to comment.
Yes. Yeah. So Ms. Sasini,
yes, I think Manoj gave like the perfect answer, right? So have your basics, right? And once you have it, you have to do your research, right? Learn. If you're just trying to figure out what you want to do the research. What does the career path look like? What are the opportunities me learning this tech stack would add me to? What would be the roles? What would be the companies or the countries that I might get the opportunities in? What would the pay scales look like, right? Do all this research as well around that, and getting the basic or that foundation right is very critical. And then the next point, as Manoj said, is have that curiosity. Don't stick to that one line of learning that you've done. Just explore the other areas that which might come across, right? If you are seeing some new technology coming up, just read about it, just go about a bit and learn it a bit by bit, right? So it adds to your profile, and that's what even I have to say.
Yeah. So one advice for every audience. So without like make some kind of what do you call? You have academic projects in IIT for the second years. I think all of you know that there's STG, software development project. So don't focus on that. Like Mr. Manoj and Mr. Sasini said, make your basics clear, and also do the research. That's the one point Mr. Sasini mentioned. So make it productive in the STG project, because you have to research about that, and you have to implementation the structures as well. So as a data science, as a blockchain developer, you have to learn everything step by step. So I think audience got that idea, like you have to cover up your basics and brush up before you come for the internship. So, okay. So the next question goes for Mr. Habib. So it's regarding this IIT placement here. So as a IIT placement coordinator, I know that he's the main coordinator, and what are the things like expecting from intern in the placement year? And I know that there is something mentioned in the IIT placement agreement as well. So before we reach to that, can I know the perfect answer for that?
All right, Randu. So I think both our panelists have already given us a great foundation on what is expected from you as an intern when you join one of these companies, right? So that's a very good thing that I suppose, I hope you've all grasped what they mentioned. The requirement itself is your curiosity and your passion. I think Manoj said that very, very nicely, where if you are really passionate about something, then it's about how you're going to add value, like I said before, to that company, Randu. All right. So how are you going to contribute towards the company's goals and objectives as an intern? You may not know all the the tech stack details. You might not be in depth and an expert in technology, but do you have the excitement to learn? Are you teachable, right? Are you curious and excited about learning new stuff? Are you humble to say, yes, I need to learn more, right? Do you have that excitement and that curiosity? If you do, you will greatly benefit the organization that you're interning with. All right. So I think you have a good foundation in terms of, you've been through several modules like professional development, and other related modules that have trained you all with various professional skill sets that you all need to have. So you must demonstrate during your internship, demonstrate those various things we have been taught, stuff like team working, leadership skills, how you manage your time, decision-making skills, how you solve problems, the different tools we have taught you on how you can solve problems. Use these theories and techniques that have been taught to you, and show, be a valuable part of the organization. Add value. Don't think that just because you're an intern, you're going to sit on the side and, do a little bit of work and just pass your 1 year's internship period. That's not the point. So rather, you all have to face the fact that you have the knowledge and the capacity and the ability and the skills to add value to the company, right? And focus on that. That's the expectation. Right, so do the best you can to support the company's objectives and goals. Even as an intern, you can do a lot for the company.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect answer for that we are expecting as an intern. So once again, Mr. Havindra, so according to the IIT placement team, we identified like there are 2 assignments when you go for intern in placement here you need to complete. So before going to the final year, actually, what is the objective of that, having some kind of assignment?
All right. So the purpose of during your internship, as you know, Randul, you all are focused 100% on your work, right? So you don't have, lectures, you don't have exams, you have no academic work during that time. During the time, you all are 100% focused on the work that you are doing with the company, right? So in this time, the only assessments that you have is where the placement team will make sure that you are in line with the company's objectives, right? So there will be about 1 or 2 visits from the placement team who are going to see, how you are doing with your industrial supervisor, so your immediate boss at work. We will talk to them. We will see how you're progressing, what kind of support you need, what the positives are, what areas you need help with, and so on, right? So your only assessments are to make sure that you have that that document which you have seen, the placement report that you fill and you have to submit a few times during your internship. And that's where we follow up and make sure you are in line with what the company is expecting from you, right? And you're also fulfilling the experience that you have to get during your internship, so that you get through whatever University of Westminster and IIT expect from you, right? So that's the purpose of both of those submissions.
So I think, Mr. Ravinder, so some of guys having that idea, some of the undergraduates and some of the interns who are like students who are ready for intern have this idea, why is matter this internship year? But may I ask, what is the validity is for the final year as an
right? So, I mean, that's a good question, Randul, because it's your internship year that you spend with the company that can give you some great ideas for your final year project, for example, right? So you've got a lot of theory already in your first 2 years. In your final year, you'll do more subjects, but it's in your internship year that you get to practically work with companies on different areas of real life business, right? So you will see how companies, from the time they, if you take a life cycle of a business life cycle, from the time they procure to the time they, provide customers with their service or product, there are so many things that happen in between. So during your internship, you will get the opportunity to experience and be a part of that cycle, right? So during that time, it's a great time for you to start thinking, how can you add value to these different processes? How can you, in your final year project, can you come up with something unique that can benefit these cycles, right? For example, if it's, testing, so software testing, right? So your Q&A process, is there anything you can build in terms of a, prototype that can help the quality assurance cycle, can help the testing cycle, right? Can you do that? So if you can come up with ideas there, that would be a great way for you to, get those ideas into your final year project. So that's how it would really help you. All right. Of course, it adds value to your CV as well. You can always talk about the fact that when you get your degree, you also have 1 year's industrial, experience already.
So as Mr. Arnold mentioned, that that will be benefit for your final year, that when you go for internship. So I have some questions from Ms. Sasini. This is an open question. Mr. Manoj also can answer. So actually, did everyone get that opportunity to build up their final project through this? And also, if so, the students who are readying for their undergraduate or for the final year, from the companies, did they get support for that? I heard some of the companies giving the support for the internships students, but how was it? How was from your side, from the Fortive as well? Sasi?
Sorry. So usually, yes, the companies, at least from Fortitude side, we do give the support, right? So if you need any specific time offs to prepare for any submissions or likewise, we would always accommodate, right? We have a lot of info call, students as well with it, right? So it's agreed at the even during the placement here when you take in, if you need to go in for any submissions or likewise, we give that support, right? And even if you want to get any specific technical exposure, but it would definitely need to align to the company's tech stacks or the projects that you are in, right? So if these are in line, you do get the support from the company. But one thing to remember, I think one advice I would give is if you are using any of the experience that you gain through a company in creating the final year project, right? Try not to use any of the confidential data within the company, right? I think a lot of companies are very, very sensitive on those things, right? So you get the permission from the company if you are by any chance using specific details which are used during the internship through the company. Other than that, I think you get support through the company. Yeah.
Okay, I think that will be really good. So anything else to add from Mr. Manoj for that question?
Yeah, well, Randall, I think I'll just go on what Havindra also said, because when I did my placement, at the time when I went in for industrial placement, I was not sure what I wanted to do, and then I actually joined a company. It's not there anymore. It's called Lanka Internet. I don't know if anyone has heard of it. It is the first company in Sri Lanka to bring internet to Sri Lanka, right? So the time I joined, it was the time they brought in internet to Sri Lanka. So I joined that because I had a passion towards obviously that side, and then I had a great time there, right? And the reason I had a great time was because it was not about the industrial placement, but it was about understanding about companies, how it operates, what they do, contributing in a way that where although you're an intern, you're respected as an engineer there, right? Because you are actually contributing sometimes more than what others are doing, right? Giving 200%. I think countless nights I would have worked till 2 in the morning, right? And please understand, this is we are not expecting everyone to do that, but it's just because I wanted. I've had bosses coming to me and saying, "Ain't you going home?" Right? Why are you hanging out in office? But the reality is that because we really wanted to learn, right? There were 3 of us actually who went to Lanka from IICS at that time, and so when I came back. For the 4th year, my project ended up in that area, right? And that's what I actually ended up focusing on. So it was I think it's a great eye opener for everyone who's stepping out right now. You can really understand what you want to do in life in terms of technology, whether it's the development side, whether you want to go into infrastructure side, right? Whether you want to go into data science side, any of that. Right, this is the time you can actually explore that, and that is a great opportunity that you are getting to do that. So I think you should make the maximum out of it, right? And don't limit yourself to just the scope of whatever you are being given, right? When you're an intern, you asking questions means that people love to answer those questions because they know you're there to learn and you're there to contribute. And you contributing and asking questions, there's absolutely no problem with that. And that's going to help you decide on what avenue you want to take.
Exactly. I think one of the experiences you have in your interns as well, I think Thanks for that, for sharing with us. So yeah, so the next one is for Mr. Manoj once again. So recently you got to the IIT Alumni Chairman. Once again, I congratulate and appreciate for that. And I need to know about something from the alumni side. So how is the alumni progress? Like, what are they expecting? Like for the placement interns, are they expecting something?
So yeah, Ron, so I think this was mentioned during this the alumni speech as well. So the main target there is to ensure that the students who are leaving for placement, as well as people who are graduating and going out, have a good exposure into technology, right? Uh, I'm not saying that you are not going to get that exposure through the through academic, but you have to understand the academic curriculum is built around certain technologies that are mature, right? You don't generally bring in technologies which fly by into a curriculum, right? Because by the time you actually go to practice it, it might not be there. So the foundation is given from an academic side. The technology, actual technology itself, or what platforms you use, that's something you need to work on, right? So what we were looking at and what we like to do is when people are actually leaving for this, right? I'm not sure whether we can do it for this particular batch because of, I mean, to be practical, they are going to be going out immediately, right? So, but what we like to do is to make sure that they get an exposure from some of our alumni technology experts in terms of what are the current technologies that are being used, how they are being used, how they're being practiced. Because we have a huge database of people, who are in various places, and they are ready to even contribute. I have spoken to some of them in other countries as well. They want to contribute and support the team. So one is on the technology side. Second one is, of course, also on the soft skills side, right? That is something I think which you really need to improve on when you're in IT now, because you deal with clients, you deal with people, it's one-on-one. You cannot hide behind your boss anymore. You can't hide behind somebody else, whatever, because you're in a conference call like this, for example, right? And you'll be asked a question, and you need to answer that question. So that communication is very important. So improving on that and making sure that you are able to articulate properly, when you're asked a question and when you're answering that. Those things are very important. So we like to look at the soft skills side as well, right? To make sure that people are able to go out into the industry and give the best of them, right? Or put out the best of them, right? And
So
then,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I think can I add something for that? So like especially we know that so there are some differences between interns from now and then, basically. So is there any development you see as intern? So I'm internship students. So is there any development you see that you have to develop rather than like, I think there's a comparative difference between now and then, but in the virtual environment as well, they are focusing on sort of the skills. I think there is some kind of a development in the skills and as well as the technical skills. So I think Ms. Hasini also can answer this. First, I approach Mr. Manoj. So how is it?
Yeah, so Ronald, there are pros and cons, I would say, right? So it goes both ways. I've seen I've seen various differences between different generations of interns and people coming in. The only thing I can say is, without doing a comparison, because I think that's unfair for me to do a comparison and say someone is better than the other. What I can say is that one of the main things you should be concerned about is being passionate about your job, right? Be happy, thankful that you have got an internship, right? And that what are you going to contribute, right? And, towards a company, right? From that, learning is up to you, right? Because nobody's going to sit with you like in a lecture room and teach you, day by day. They're going to give you some work and they're going to ask you to do it. They want you to ask questions, and that's a part of it. That's the whole idea of industrial placement, right? Or as you might as well stay back in college, right? So I think it's about being passionate about what you do, and also I think it's also about enhancing your knowledge continuously. And these are things that I think I mentioned earlier also. There is a difference sometimes I see in between, from the previous generations to this. And this is something that you should be able to really focus on when you're kind of working in an industry. Try to be be a bit flexible. You don't need to impress anybody. There's nothing to impress you when you're an intern. There's a certain expectation we set, but that being passionate about the work, being spending time putting that extra effort into it, that is what counts, right? And I'll tell you that any company who gives an internship will always keep an eye on you to hire you, right? If you're good, right? That's a given. So it's all about whether you want to join that company or something else, but you're going to have an option there, right, to join the company if you work at it. So, and also just to add to what you said, yes, there is a difference with working from home and virtual, because now interns are expected to be a little bit more independent, right? You're expected to do research on your own and report back, get things done without hand holding. So these kind of things are, I think have evolved over the last 2 years, I think, right? Mainly, right? And that has come in play, and I think that's good. That gives gives that level of maturity very fast for an intern. And as long as you are operating through some sort of a platform, I know many companies use, like, for example, Microsoft Teams, right? Microsoft Teams or Google or even Zoom, right? They have these platforms, and they will use these platforms to communicate, ask questions, update stuff and whatever. And that is a difference. So the previous interns, they did not do that. They were in office, right? They were in office and they'll ask the questions then and there, right? But here there's a bit more independence. Right?
I think I seem like actually, so for interns, yes. And I need to know the Mr. Hasini answer. And also I think Mr. Havendra also like to add something after that. Yeah, is Hasini?
Yeah, so I will also actually go with the lines which Manoj mentioned, right? Because that's the situation. There is a difference, but for you to operate as an intern in the virtual environment, I think you need to have a lot of focus, right? Even more than that you would have in a face-to-face and more on-prem training period, right? You would need to focus, sit and do your work. Never be afraid to ask questions, right? As Manu said, it's all virtual, and you can just drop the Teams message to your supervisor or to another person in the team, right? Drop the message, and if you have any questions, ask. Do your research. Have that curiosity to give that, do that extra research a bit, and give that effort, the 100% or more effort. Get the best that you can get out of the internship. Most of the companies, as Manoj mentioned again, if you perform well, they definitely track you and they try to get you back. If they can convert you immediately, they will do that as well if you are a good performer. And even after you leaving and completing the final year, they will keep a track of you and might reach out to you and ask, are you open? Are you interested? We have an opening, right? So give that effort, have that curiosity and passion.
Exactly. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that was said very, very nicely by both panelists. And I just want to add, Randul, what I mentioned before, but I'll emphasize that again, is from day one of your internship, focus on how you can add value to the company. Right? Let that be your mindset. Right? If that is your mindset, you will do the utmost. Like I think Manoj mentioned earlier, right? Working till late in life, he didn't have to do that. He was an intern. But he did it because it was in line with his passions, and he was thinking, how can I do this? How can I make the best of my my stay here this 1 year? Remember, it's such, you're in the middle, right, sandwiched in between your degree. So this is the chance that you've got nothing else to focus on. Give 100% to what you're doing with the intention of learning as much as you can and adding value to the company. So when you think like that, you will naturally evolve into being an asset to that organization. It will just naturally happen. How can I add value? How can I help the company to meet its objectives? How can I be a valuable part of the team? Think like that. That's your mindset. You will do well, right? It will happen. Okay.
Exactly. So I agreed for that point, and I think Mr. Manoj also point out some of the like special thing out of it, and also thank you for that, words, Mr. Harinder. So we come to the end of the panel discussion, but before we wrap up, I just like to mention the questions we're asking. So yes, the first question they're asking is, should you sharpen your skills more than using that time to dabble in multiple fields, stacking to web development and improving on that rather than trying out multiple fields like machine learning? Is there any I think any answer for that? I think it's asking for that. It's the sharpen your skills more than using the time is to dabble in multiple fields, sticking to web development and improving on that rather than trying out multiple fields like machine learning. I think, yeah, you can answer.
Yeah, so I'll take a jump at this. So yeah, so I think yeah, multiple fields is it's very subjective, when you say that, because there are things which are going on right now in the world, and you should have an idea of it, of course, right? If you take the companies right now, a lot of people are, if you take companies, say in Sri Lanka, they may be into IoT development, or they may be working for a telco, maybe, right? And some of these big companies, their big accounts are telco accounts, and those telcos may be developing in 5G right now, right? And things like that. So there may be things that you should be aware of, right? But I think you should focus on, like I said, the foundation and basics, make sure that you have that right. Because once you go into any company, I don't think you are going to be asked, hey, are you an expert in AI and machine learning, right? When you go in as an intern. But if you go in as an intern, and I think this question can be answered better than by Sashini, better than me, because she's doing this recruitment right now. So, but I think if you actually go in as an intern, we are not going to expect anyone to be an expert in this area, right? And even if you come and start throwing in buzzwords, it's not going to work, right? Because we know that you won't have that level of experience to where we can actually offload a project onto a person, right? So what's important there is you have to have an understanding of AI, for example, if that's the area you want to focus on, or machine learning, understand how it works. And then when you go in for the interview and say, this is an area that I'm very passionate about, and I know I have worked on this area, I have done research on it, I have done some small project on it, something like that. And that itself is going to give the interviewer a very positive vibe for this person. Okay.
Exactly. So anything else to add from Mr. Sasini?
No, I agree with Manoj, right? So do that, have your basics right. Don't try to, even when you are going through the career, don't try to have bits and pieces of everything and not knowing one basic thing, right? And then later on you might get the opportunity to explore the other areas. And when you are going to the interview, if you are passionate about, if you are mentioning that, make sure that you have done the bit of certifications, mini courses, right? Show them that you have done your part up to now, at to the level of a fresher, up to the level of an intern. And rest of it, of course, the company is aware that you are not an expert. We are not expecting you to come in and start from a senior level, right? We are expecting you to come in as an intern, but show that you're passionate, you've done your research, you've done a bit of self-learning yourself, and through the academic courses as well. And the rest, of course, the company will also might be able to, based on the opportunities which are there, give you the opportunity to climb up the ladder.
That's a lot. I think you got that idea. So not only sticking into one side, so you can sharpen your skill according to projects, according to the structure of the companies you are going to intern. So I think there's some direct question for Mr. Manoj. May I ask that question? Is it okay?
That's fine. I don't
Yeah,
know what the question is, but
yes. So they are asking that Janidu is asking that. So is it okay to apply foreign company? Because most of the company looking for the fresh graduates. I think that's the question they're asking.
you mean for internship, is it?
Yes, internship.
Yeah, so foreign company meaning, is it a just need a clarification there. Are you talking about a company which is operating in Sri Lanka and, joining, or you're trying to get
I
an
think,
internship?
yes, some kind of company operating in Sri Lanka and have.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, there are many companies here which operate, and I mean, if they are taking interns, right? I think that's a good area to this thing. I think Janidu is raising his hand.
Yes, Janidu, you can ask.
Sir, my question is, like most of the foreign companies need an internship after the graduation. Their graduations, like after the 4th year, after the completing degree, but we are in the middle of the 2nd year. My question is, is it okay to apply those foreign companies? Are they expecting actually like graduate students?
So Janidu, I think you need to see what the criteria is, when they're advertising that job, because they'll generally say we need a minimum of degree or whatever, right? I mean, they'll have some sort of a criteria when they're advertising it. If they don't have a criteria, I mean, yes, of course you can try that, and but of course I would also say that they are temporary. It's good to get some exposure with some of the local companies, because you'd understand what the actual setup is in Sri Lanka, because the foreign companies, by the time you graduate, you may not, that might have been just a project, right? So there are things, right?
Okay, but the thing is, like most of the foreign companies, like they are not. Some companies say we need a 4 years experience for the intern. Then like some companies didn't say about that, but in the YouTube videos they are saying, okay, you have to you need to know about these areas. But the thing is, in our level, in the as a 2nd year, we didn't know about those areas. So is it like is it okay if I apply those companies? So if I like I need to like learn those areas, like as an example, like most of the companies need to know like more skills on the data structures. So but in our level, we are learning about the data structure, but little more, little knowledge we have.
Yeah, so Jayendra, I think you should get a clarification from them what they're expecting as an intern in this, right? Because although they don't say graduate and and then an internship, it may be so, right? One thing is, now if you take some places like maybe in US and all that, sometimes you graduate and then you do an internship after that, right? That's how it works. So when you go into the big companies, say the big fives or any of them, right, or any of the Wall Street companies, you generally get an internship there, right? They will scout around and find the right people. They will look for if you come from an Ivy League college or something, you get they will earmark that, and they will want to interview and things like that. But still, it becomes an end of the day an internship. So in this case, you need to get I think some clarity on what they're expecting, whether they're expecting a graduate or not. And the second thing I'd like to raise is, I think you need to also get from your institute whether that is okay, because there's a certain thing that certain areas that need to be, I guess, covered from an institute point of view, and whether that will get covered when it's a company, local company, in this case, like as Sachin is here from Fortitude, say, you can always monitor Fortitude, and you can always ask Fortitude, what how are they progressing, what is going on, right?
I think,
Yes,
yeah.
I have another one question. Like, I'm more passionate about the blockchain technology. So I'm trying to get a blockchain internship. But the thing is, within Sri Lanka, there's a limited companies. There's a 4 companies, and also they are not giving a blockchain internship. Like it's a like they said, if you are interested in blockchain, then you can work with us, like work with the blockchain, kind of a blockchain project. Or like what should I do? Like, any suggestion for me?
Yeah, so if you are interested in blockchain, I think, you would have to start at some point, at some foundation level. So the better thing would be to join something where you can at least work with a team who's doing blockchain work, because they are. I doubt any company is going to straight away take you and put you into a a project and say, okay, you work on this blockchain. I have spoken to various colleagues and friends of mine who are operating these companies also. So what they have also said is on with regard to interns, they always have them piggyback somebody, right? That means they're shouldering somebody else to understand how something is working, and that's exactly what you need to get from as an intern, right? Because you need to learn from them how it's operating, right? So I hope that answers your question, because I wouldn't want to discourage you from some opportunity you might have got, but you should ideally work with the team, I guess. I mean, especially.
Yes, up to now, like I have a basic knowledge because my second year group project also depend like based on the blockchain concepts. So I think the problem is, like, I have a problem, like I have only limited companies. There's a 4 companies. That's the problem.
Yeah, there may be companies which are doing blockchain, I suppose, for other projects, because I mean, blockchain technology is used quite a bit in the financial industry, right? I mean, for banking now, banking applications and various things, that's very popular. Other than the very obvious crypto, right? Other than that, I think blockchain is used a lot in the banking side. So,
I think you got the answer.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I think we have some productive session today. So I'm glad that even the time is running out now. I just focusing on, okay, now time is over, but they are having so many questions from this side also. I have some more questions, but I will keep them for now, because some of the questions we have answered already. So yeah, we come to the end of the panel discussion now. So yes, I would like to share my screen now. Okay. Okay, once again, thank you for joining with us, and also I would like to first our first panelist I have introduced today in this evening. So thank you so much, Ms. Sasini Vitana. I think that's a productive session you had, and also you get that most exposure from your Fortitude. You have work experience from Fortitude side as well, and enlightening us how we should exist in intern, and also how the opportunities given by the for the companies as well. So I hope everyone get that better clarifications about the internships from this as well. And please accept this token of appreciation. Very glad.
Thank you. Thanks, Randul. And I hope everyone got a chance to learn something, at least something small.
Exactly. So yeah, I will go for next question. Yeah, once again, Mr. Manoj, I think this is the best product from IIT, and also I'm also really glad to speak with Mr. Manoj as an undergraduate who are learning in IIT, having a good exposure in how this like how the business world is going on, and also the technologies. And once again, thank you for that, Mr. Manoj, like pointing out questions. You have clearly answer for that without giving any kind of negative feedback for the students. And also you have shared so much experiences, actually, I mean, so that's really valuable time. And so I hope everyone also get that experience, which was Mr. Manoj mentioned earlier in this panel discussion so far. So thank you for this time. Thank you for your valuable time. I know that you have a busy schedule, but yes, please accept this token of appreciation. So,
Thank you, Randu. Thank you, and thank you to the rest of you all as well, everyone who joined. And I hope you all gathered something from this discussion, right? I know we are short of time, so I think we have to end this. But thanks for joining in as well.
yes. So once again, our module leader at Informatics Institute of Technology, and who are mainly like coordinating us for the placement here. I think some of them get the better answer from you, sir. So about the agreements and about how the IIT placement here works on, and what are the benefits, and also what's the focus, actually, what is the main target of having a placement here in IIT. So once again, thank you, Mr. Havendra Gunawardena, for that enlightening and also informative session about that IIT placement here. And also, please, like everyone also get that clarification how the placement year agreement also working. So once again, thank you, and please accept this token of appreciation beside of IEEE Society.
Thank you, Randul, and thank you, team, and thanks for having me on the session today.
So once again, thank you for every panelist today, and also I like to thank you especially Ms. Sasini. Beside of you have give us a really good, huge what you call CV writing, how you want to receive it, right? And also you have enjoyed with us in the panel discussion with the questions we asking. So yeah, so this is time of the next segments of this IndustPro Day 1. So I will hand it over to Uttara to continue the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Randu. And we are thankful to our guest panel for this productive discussion. Again, thank you so much. So currently I'm falling with the current interruption, so I couldn't turn on my camera. Sorry for the inconvenience. And yeah, now I would like to introduce Rukshan Fernando, who is Vice Chairman of IEEE Computer Society, Student Branch Chapter of IIT, and the Ambassador of IEEE Power and Energy Society. Over to you, Rukshan, for giving support. Rukshan, over to you.
Thank you, Dara. Honorable Dean, Ms. Naomi Kisraja, and all the respected lecturers, our most valued guests, and all the IITians. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. On behalf of the IndusPro event of IEEE Computer Society, Student Branch Chapter of IIT, would like to pay our hearty gratitude to all the speakers who are gracing your important work and sharing with your findings and opinions today. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Mr. Sasini Vitana for great speech, and further we grateful to Mr. Manoj Pilimatalawa and Mr. Havendra Gunawardena for demonstrating their great ideas among us. Especially our thanks go to Ms. Naomi Krishnarajam, who is always being our giant soul behind us on each and every occasion in our uni life. Thank you so much, ma'am, for really being helpful for our success in our event. And as well as a very special, I would like to thank Ms. Abarna Kirpananda, who is the branch counsel of IEEE Computer Society of IIT. Thank you, ma'am, for being there always with us when we need you. sometimes as a mother, sometimes as a friend, and sometimes as a guide, and hope to have your guidance in our future events as well. And as well, I may like to express our sincere thanks to Mr. Kasim Farooq, who is the branch counsel of IEEE student branch of IIT. He was supported and guided us during these talks until the end. And I would like to pay our hearty gratitude to senior lecturer Mr. Havindra Gunawardena, who helped us a lot of success in this event. And I would like to specially thank our IIT alumni for supporting us and encouraging us by sharing their knowledge and their past experiences as well. And I'm also very grateful to all the placement coordinators here with us to share their knowledge and guidance. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on our hearty thanks to all the executive committee members of IEEE Computer Society and all the volunteers of the IndustPro event who are the real giants behind the scenes and made this occasion great and huge. Because the success of an event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels start rolling weeks ago and it requires planning and a bird eye for details. We have been enough to back by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues of IIT who know their job very well and result-oriented. Last but not least, I don't think that I could give enough thanks to all of you at this moment with the limitations of the time. But thank you so much for each and every one of you to join us and being supportive to grace this occasion as more successful one. Thank you all. Thank you and have a nice day to you all. Over to you, Udara.
Thank you, Rakshan. Guys, now we posted the CV submissions link on the chat. So please go and check it out because this is a great opportunity for you all. So make sure to submit your CV before noon on the 28th of March. Rukshan, yeah, can you send me the link to the chat? I couldn't see the link right now. Okay, guys.
The link on the chat.
Yeah. Check it out and submit your CV before noon on the 28th of March. So before ending this session, this session, I request you guys to switch on your cameras to take a group photo of you guys, and plus make sure to give us your best look. And yeah, I'm also suffering with power cut. So Janidu, can we take a photograph?
Yeah, okay. I'm also
Let me give a countdown.
Yes, better to give a countdown now.
Yeah.
Can you guys turn on your cameras and being your best smile?
Smile.
Yeah, okay. That's great. Okay.
One more.
Okay. I think all of you, yeah, smile, guys. Being your best smile. Okay, go. Another one. 3. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Janidu. Now it's time to wind up this session. So guys, stay tuned for all the upcoming sessions with us. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Stay safe and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.